Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well. I did my best. I uploaded, I downloaded, I uploaded, I erased, and all that kind of stuff. We will see if the mystery of the changing background, the changing camera has been solved. I believe it has. We'll see if it worked out. Don't worry, folks. For those of you waiting and hoping to see the air vent make its appearance today, if it does, there will be a special holiday celebration with it. So I've got myself covered in case. We'll hope it's not an issue. For those of you that have been around for a long time with us here on Fantasy Sports Daily, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you that don't, we often have some tech issues with the camera. There's an air vent over my shoulder. It has been decorated for the holiday season. We'll see if it makes an appearance today or not. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all of you, all the kind words, all the positivity in the chat room, all that kind of good stuff. Thank you, everybody. For those of you wondering what I'm talking about, we have this little show called Fantasy Sports Daily that you're watching right now. We're on Monday through Friday. Go about an hour each day, 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. After us, from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, is the Elite Sports Show with Jeff Mans. I'm with Jeff over there on Wednesdays. So I'm with you here 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Jeff on Wednesdays. I'm Ray Flowers. You can follow me on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, all those places at the Ray Flowers. And what we basically do is we spend an hour talking fantasy sports. We're focusing at this point of the calendar basically directly on football. There's a couple of baseball. We had a baseball trade. Hey, Ward and Grayson, Rodriguez, but we're really focusing on football, and that's kind of the plan here moving forward, at least until we get more toward the playoff time in the NFL. We'll start to broaden things up because when we get to playoff time in football, we'll also be talking fantasy baseball over at FantasyGuru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner to get involved with any of the products that we have available, including multiple plans here. Number one, we've got the MVP plan, which is basically everything we do besides football and baseball. So NASCAR, PGA, MMA, horse racing, soccer, basketball, hockey, go Macklin Celebrini. All of those are in the MVP plan over at FantasyGuru.com. For now, at least, we still have the deal going on. The all-in football package there with our fancy new background for Thanksgiving. I really brought out the big gun today, folks. The camera hopefully is working. The background hopefully is working. We're bringing it today here on this Thursday. We got the all-in NFL package at FantasyGuru.com, $99.99 the rest of the way, all throughout the year for football. We got you covered for seasonal. We got you covered for DFS. We got you covered for wagering, college football, and the NFL for the rest of the season. Boom, done, taken care of. Everything we do basically football related at FantasyGuru.com. Videos, live streams, podcasts, articles, chat rooms, rankings, projections, all of it over at FantasyGuru.com. Send an email to support at FantasyGuru.com. Support at FantasyGuru.com. Or send it, just click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Boom, done, easy. Subscribe tab, top right corner. We are rocking and rolling. We're also rocking and rolling today. In about 25 or so minutes, we'll visit with Tyler Buecher. He joins us every Thursday. He hops on the show, and we talk a little bit of Thursday Night Football. We kind of talk some storylines around the league. This week, we'll spend a lot of time talking the wide receiver position with Tyler. Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. What do we expect from these guys moving forward? What does McMillan do for the redo after his breakout performance last week? Jameson Williams, is he going to keep the good times rolling? John Metchie, Adonai Mitchell, Jayden Higgins, Emeka Egbuka. What's going on there? And is Darnell Mooney a thing? With Drake Lennon out this week, we'll talk to Tyler Buecher and Thursday Night Football with him as well in about 25 minutes. Before then, we'll talk some waiver wires, the results, kind of go through some of the names that you'll obviously be interested in talking about, I would assume. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the items of the week, including two major topics. One is Joe Burrow playing this week. And two, how do we apply the advice that we get? I think that's a big topic. Jeff and I talked about a little bit on the Elite Sports Show yesterday, so we'll spend a little bit of time here on the show today. For those of you that don't listen on Sirius XM or just want a little bit more information on what we talked about at the top of the show yesterday. Many ways to get involved with us. Well, obviously, one of them you're watching right now. For all of you watching live, thank you. Tell a friend, spread the word, all that kind of good stuff. Like, subscribe, all those good things wherever you're listening. You can listen in podcast form. Go to fantasyguru.com, click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page over at FG. You can type in Fantasy Sports Daily where you listen to your podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube Music, Apple iTunes. You'll be able to find Fantasy Sports Daily there. And there's 3 places where you can watch live or on demand. In those 3 places, you can leave comments and questions that we can address throughout the show. As we can see here, like Ethan, can't tell too many friends. I don't want them to know your secrets. Oh, boo. I understand, Ethan, but boo. That's always the battle we face. My living is based upon getting people in. Once we get people in, they don't ever leave, but they don't want to tell anyone else because they feel like they're getting an advantage. I get it. Tell a friend at least about the show. Those 3 places are youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork, Twitter X @FantasyGuruSite, and Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. Watch live, watch on demand. But if you're watching live in those 3 places, you can leave comments and questions that we can address throughout the show. Oh, Seaweed, look at Seaweed today. He says, I'll tell everyone. They still have to beat me. Good attitude, Seaweed. I like it. All right. Let's dive in. We'll start talking the waiver wire again. This is not so we can talk about my leagues. No one cares about my leagues. I get that. We're using it as a foil, as a jumping off starting point to have discussions about the players that were involved here. My FSGA, or we're talking SiriusXM Host League. Sorry, let's go to the right one, right? Idiot. SiriusXM Host League. Terrible 4-7 in this league. My team has been beset by injuries, just not working out at all. This is a super flex league. You have $100 to spend. As you can see there on the screen as well, you can add players for $0. So we have that option here. But there's $100 of fab to spend, 12-team super flex league. I'm really hurting at the quarterback position. I've got Patrick Mahomes. Problem is I got CJ Stroud as my second quarterback. And Stroud obviously is going to miss another week with the concussion issue. Real growing concerns. We'll talk a little bit more about him, but growing concerns about where he's going to be the rest of the season. So I added Tyrod Taylor for $0. I have no idea how long Tyrod Taylor is going to start. I don't even know if he's going to be very good. Let's be honest about that. But on this team, I have Vidal on bye, Keenan Allen on bye. I've got Stroud injured. I've got Kyle Monangai and Jordan Mason. Those are weak flex options, super flex options, excuse me. So I added Tyrod Taylor for $1. Love it. For $0, excuse me. And if it doesn't work this week, I'll hope that Stroud's back next week, right? So I thought that was a perfect addition. You can also see there that Shore Sanders was added for $0. Sanders has been named the starter of the Browns. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'd rather have Taylor than Sanders, obviously. I honestly, I think maybe it'll turn out differently, but I don't see those 2 guys as even in the same ballpark. And that is saying something right now because I don't think Tyrod Taylor's very good. But hey, we'll see. I added Taylor for the $0. Other guys at $0. Jerry Jeudy for $0, catching passes from Sanders. Colson Loveland for $0. He's fine. David Njoku for $0. He's fine. These guys are fine. If they play, Njoku's beat up. I don't know if he's going to play this week. I actually have Fannin on this team myself. So we'll see how that goes with Sanders. But more directly, it'll maybe benefit me if Njoku's a little bit beat up in this league. Yosavash, Andre Yosavash, we talked about him yesterday on the show, or Tuesday on the show, excuse me. I think he is a very intriguing addition this week. Flacco's going to throw the ball 35 times. 10, 12 of those passes probably going to T. Higgins. 8, 10 passes going to Yosavash. It sounds crazy, but it's, they got to fill for Jamar Chase because of Spitgate. So Yosavash for $0, excellent pickup. I think he is somebody that you could, as a wide receiver 3/flex, use this week. Zonovan Knight for $3. We don't know how long Emari DeMarcado is going to be out, but he's not going to play this week. We don't know if Trey Benson's going to play this week. Still uncertain at this point in time. Let's take a look and see if that's changed here in the last 15 minutes when I was doing all my tech stuff. Oh my gosh, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's try this again. It was all going so well. At least you can't tell that I'm a buffoon in the background. But when I was prepping for the show, let's see. I don't see any updates this morning. Okay, so as of now, we don't know if Trey Benson's going to play. Benson, even if he does play, is he going to touch the ball 15 times? I'm not sure in his first week. So Bam Knight, Zonovan Knight, we talked about him earlier on Monday, scored a touchdown, had a 59-yard touchdown callback on a penalty last week. No Emari DeMarcado, strong addition at the $3 price point. Kirk Cousins for $3 here. Pick your poison. Does Cousins have a better chance than Sanders or Taylor to be starting in 3 weeks? Absolutely. Is it worth $3 extra to find that out? Sure. No problem doing that. Darnell Mooney, we'll talk about him with Tyler Buecher again for $3. Mooney's the number 1 receiver right now. It's he and Cordero Hodge with Drake London out. Those guys will be catching passes, obviously, from Kirk Cousins. We'll get into that a little bit more with Tyler. Kenneth Gainwell for 11, Emmanuel Wilson for 13. Look, we talk about this all the time. You should be handcuffing your guys in the Dynasty League I'm in, I have Wilson and Jacobs. In the Keeper League I'm in, I have Wilson and Jacobs. This is what you got to do, right? If not, you end up having to spend money on guys like Gainwell and Wilson, or Wilson and Gainwell. Not crazy expenditures, right? But 11, 13% of your budget for guys that, Jaylen Warren could play this week. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. Josh Jacobs could play this week. Even if he misses this week, it doesn't sound like he's out long term. So you're spending a good chunk of money for guys that are maybe 1 week fill-ins. Maybe need that week to make the playoffs. Okay, so I'm not saying it's crazy to do it. Those price points are not crazy either. But handcuff your guys. We talked about this. Even if you're not a handcuff person, kinky. I didn't mean it kinky. I meant it football-wise. Even if you're not a handcuff person, once the season hits double digits, you got to handcuff your number 1 and 2. I would handcuff my 1 and 2 assets if that was me. But you definitely got to handcuff your number 1 asset. I don't know. Otherwise, you have to pay this week. All right, next up. Let's go to the Elite Listener League. Maybe some of you are in that league or here with us today. I don't know. My team started out very slowly in this league. It's come on very strong of late. Moved to 7-4 with the victory last week, I believe. This team is, it's solid. It sure helps when Josh Allen scores 6 touchdowns. That helps a lot. It helps that Trevion Henderson finally took over the backfield. We'll talk a little bit more about that backfield here a bit. Roman Wilson for 148 to me is a wild overspend. Wilson is certainly looking like the number 2 receiver now. It looks like he has passed Austin to be that number 2 guy behind DK Metcalf. Probably not a bad thing that there's going to be likely a change at quarterback this week with Aaron Rodgers probably missing. We'll see. We still don't know with his left wrist issue. We still don't know who's going to be the quarterback this week. I think that's an overspend for Roman Wilson. I overspent for Greg Dortch. I'm the guy that spent 136 for Greg Dortch. Why? 136, 14% of the $1,000 budget. Why? Because I got Ladd McConkey on bye. I got Deebo Samuel on bye. I had to get a guy. We'll talk Greg Dortch here later in the show too. Is Greg Dortch going to go 666-1 again? No. Is he going to go 550? Is he going to get me 10 PPR points? I hope he can do that. We'll see if that's realistic or not. Jayden Higgins for $41, much more reasonable price point. John Metchie, there's an N there. John Metchie for $40. Higgins is seeing a high volume of targets here of late. It really looks like he's passing, even though that doesn't play the same role in the offense, but he is past Christian Kirk. It looks like he's ahead of Noel. Kind of the second receiver, actually, in terms of workload right now behind Collins. So solid ad at that price point. John Metchie, we'll see who's going to catch passes. I mean, I don't know who's going to catch passes for a team that doesn't have a receiving core, but John Metchie certainly looks like the 1 or 2. Theoretically, he's the number 1 wide receiver for the Jets with Adonai Mitchell, the 2, right? Isaiah Williams, Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, Alan Lazard, ugh. So Metchie, again, at this price point, absolutely get involved. 4% of the budget. Jacoby Brissett for 34%. Think about that. This is, and again, I have Josh Allen, so I have no need for any backup quarterbacks named Jacoby Brissett. But only 3.4% of the budget for a guy who's gone 250-2 week after week after week. Jeff Mans talked about this yesterday on the show. I think a lot of people are looking at Brissett and they're just banking. They think he's a top 10 quarterback the rest of the way. Be careful with that line of thinking. We know who Brissett is. He's been great. He's been extremely productive, and he's run the offense better than Kyler Murray. Doesn't mean he's a top 10 quarterback the rest of the way. Isaiah Hodgins for $27. Sure, why not? I think I spelled that wrong. I think did that spell right? Let me look at this real quickly. I don't know if I spelled that right. Spell Ray. No, I did spell right. Hey, look, I did spell right. Look at Ray. Go Ray. It is Gins. We don't know if Darius Slayton's going to play. Isaiah Hodgins hadn't done anything all year until last week. Could be the number 2 receiver for the Giants. Looks like Jackson Dart probably returns this week. Matt Collins for 23. That was also me. Kayshon Boutte is going to return, so that really blunts any kind of excitement about Matt Collins. But again, 2.3% of your budget for a guy that's been involved, especially when Boutte's been down. It's fine. It's just a death play. And then AJ Varner for $23. Finally, the FSGA League. This league is another one of my teams that has been just beset by injuries. Went Daniels at quarterback, then went Fields at quarterback, then went Stroud at quarterback. Now I'm down to Mariota. It's right? So had up and down performances all over the place, got injured guys all over the place. I picked up Harrison Butker for $1. Yeah, $1 of my $100 spent in this 14-team PPR league to get Harrison Butker. As you can see there, Jordan Love only went for $1. So 4 teams on bye this week. Okay. $1 for Jordan Love. Jaguars for $1. Colby Parkinson for $1. Tyler Higbee's been placed on the IR. Parkinson is the lead receiving tight end with the Rams as of now. Remember, the Rams are running like a third of their plays with 3 tight ends. So there's a chance that Parkinson's usable. He's not a guy I'm saying anyone start, but if you had to dart throw this sucker, he's not the worst option in the world. He does get utilized in the red zone. Xavier Legette for $3. Solid addition. We'll see where his health is at this week, but solid addition for $3. Joseph Osh went for $6 with a failed bid at $6. Higgins went for $26 with a failed bid at $2. I got to think that the 26 on Higgins was probably a missed hit keyboard. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's a lot. 26% of your budget for Jayden Higgins. But yeah, so there's a couple of failed bids there, but pretty tight bidding, pretty low level bidding here this week for this league. Okay, let's now move on. As I notice, I got to do something here. Add drop players. There we go. Okay, I'll make a move later today. Let's talk a little bit about. Let me switch the page here. There we go. Let's get back to the big page here, and let's make me a little bit bigger because again, my camera is working today. Let's show my face off. Woohoo! Here we go. Discernment on advice. Jeff Mans does a Tuesday show talking waiver wire on Sirius XM. Again, remember, it's 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. I'm there on Wednesdays. And every Tuesday, he does a show where he goes through his top 10 waiver wire pickups of the week, and he ranks them 10 to 1. Last week, it was Luther Burden, and everyone, I'll say it this way. It's great when all of you listen to us. It makes you feel good that you're getting it, right? We're giving advice, and you're taking the advice, which is great. Jeff said all week, I like Luther Burden. Everyone was asking me questions about Luther Burden in Discord over at fantasyguru.com. This week, it seems to be, Tuten is a guy that's really all over the place this week. Emmanuel Wilson is the guy that's really all over the place this week. I think, though, the problem that we're running into is that the level of discernment that's necessary to take the advice, hey, add this guy, to become B, you got to make this move. That's where we have a little bit of an issue. I had someone, and I don't mean to make fun of anyone if they're listening to this right now. I just use it for illustrative purposes. I had someone ask in Discord over at FG, should they drop RJ Harvey to add Emmanuel Wilson? Obviously, the answer to that is no. Right? But Ray, Jeff said to get Emmanuel Wilson. Jeff did say to get Emmanuel Wilson. We also saw this on social media. Someone said that they wildly overspent on Emmanuel Wilson on their fab budget run because Jeff was so in on Emmanuel Wilson. Let's be very clear about this. Just like last week with Luther Burden, when everyone was adding Luther Burden, and I told everyone who added Luther Burden, do not start Luther Burden. I said that to everyone that asked last week. Adam, yes. Good time to add him before he blows up. What did he do? He went and took over the role of Olamide Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus played like 10 snaps. He wasn't even on the field. So that was absolutely 100% the correct call to add Burden. It was also absolutely 100% the correct call not to play Burden. And that's kind of the same zone we're in with Emmanuel Wilson. If you have Josh Jacobs and you don't have Emmanuel Wilson, you blew it. Josh Jacobs could still play this week. It's unlikely he's going to play this week, but he could play this week. It certainly seems like even if Jacobs misses this week, he's back next week. So we're not dropping RJ Harvey, who's the number one running back for his team, to pick up a guy who really, it appears, has got a 1 week window of starting, if that. So we have to understand what we're talking about. If Jacobs is out this week, could you start Wilson this week? Absolutely, 100%. Could you ever start Wilson if Jacobs is active? Not if you want to win. So, unless news comes out that Jacobs is going to be placed on the IR, when everything we've heard says that's not a reality, unless we're hearing he's going to miss 2-3 weeks, which is nothing we've officially heard either, Wilson is a good add, but you're not dropping startable players right now to add Wilson for what, again, could be just 1 week. So be very careful that when you're taking the advice and adding the players you should be adding, right, that you have basically room to add the players. Again, in all of my leagues, Burden and Wilson are owned. But again, I do 14-team leagues. I do leagues with 6-8 bench spots. I know a lot of you are in 10-team leagues. Some of you have 5 bench spots. There's a lot of players that, are on waivers that, again, were drafted in my leagues. So the advice we give has got to be very broad. right? Because we're giving advice for 10-team leagues for people that are kind of novice level. We're giving advice to people in 14-team leagues that are advanced level. We're giving advice for people in dynasty leagues. Like there's a whole spectrum that we have to address when we give the advice. If you have any questions, you can ask on the show. You can obviously ask in Discord at fantasyguru.com. Remember, click on the subscribe tab in the top right corner. Send an email to support@fantasyguru.com. Support@fantasyguru.com. Send those emails if you have any questions about the website. If you've got questions about start sits, don't send them to the email address. Send them to us. People do that sometimes. Like we get like 20 emails a day of start them, send them to the website email address. Don't do that. Send those to us in Discord. And we can help walk through these questions you might have about adding or dropping players. Make sure that you listen to the fine points. Because again, someone said they blew their fab budget because Jeff was so into Wilson. Jeff never said blow your fab budget on Wilson. Never. In fact, Jeff said multiple times he wasn't convinced that Jacobs wasn't going to play this week. He said that on the show. And yet someone still went out and blew their whole fab budget on Wilson and then blamed Jeff for it. So context is important. We're happy to answer those questions in Discord over at fantasyguru.com. If you're not certain, make sure you listen to the nuance, because the nuance really is where, the rubber meets the road, as they say. Okay. Joe Burrow could play this week. Okay. I'm not really sure what's going on. Aren't they 3-7? What are they? 3-7, 3-8? What the hell are the Bengals right now? The Bengals are 3-7. Why? I don't know. They said they were targeting week 13. We're hearing now that there's the potential that he could return this week. Practice in full yesterday. Practicing in full while Joe Flacco's limited because of his left shoulder, but he's obviously fine. We've seen him continue to play. We'll see. I mean, it's possible Joe Burrow plays this week. Okay. At this point, statistically, I think it'd be better for Flacco to be under center than Burrow, number one. Number two, is Burrow really going to come back without Jamar Chase? I'm kind of leaning toward he's not playing this week, that he's going to give it a go next week. But again, they're 3-7. They got nothing to play for. Their odds of making the playoffs are, I don't know, tiny. They have to basically win out, right? We'll see. But we'll follow that storyline because it's a big one. If he's on your waiver wire and you want to add him, okay. Still not 100% convinced he plays this year. Still not 100% convinced he plays this week. And still not 100% convinced that, he's a top 5 or 6 quarterback the rest of the way. In fact, I'd be very doubtful of that at this point. We talked about Cleveland earlier. Cleveland's making that change to Sanders. We've already discussed it here on the show. Sanders looked terrible last week. Be careful with Sanders because the team, and teams change things, but the team has already stated categorically that Dylan Gabriel is the quarterback when healthy. He's going through a concussion issue right now. Fully expect Gabriel next week, if he's healthy, to be out there for the Browns. So Sanders really has got a 1-week window here to impress, do something so dynamic they have to change their mind. He obviously, though, did not look good at the end of that game last week. His comments to the media are pretty dicey. So, I don't have high hopes. Quinshon Judkins, Bannon, okay, but this Browns offense you don't want to be invested in. Arizona, caution, big-time caution with the expectations after the record-setting game by Brissett last week. Big-time caution with Michael Wilson after the huge effort he had last week. We'll talk to Tyler Buecher in a few minutes about him. Be cautious here. We have the uncertainty in the backfield, right? This whole offense has been forced to play catch-up because they continually fall behind. That's not likely to change down the stretch. They're likely to pass an awful lot. But be cautious here. Again, Dortch, Wilson, we'll talk more about those guys with Tyler. Brissett's been really good. Can be 250 and 2 every week? Probably not. D'Amico Ryan said that CJ Stroud will not play this week, so that's good. We know categorically that Davis Mills is going to start. As I hinted at earlier, this is concerning with CJ Stroud. Yikes. I don't know. I mean, CJ Stroud, at this point, he's missing multiple games. It's a short week. Fine, sure. Multiple weeks here with the head injury. We got to keep a close eye on this. Davis Mills has done a fine job. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't killed the team. He's given them chances to win games. In fact, he's won games for them. Cautious optimism that we see Stroud back out on the field, but got to be honest with you, it's cautious. I'm not head injuries that take 3-4 weeks to recover from. Concerning. This one is interesting. I don't know if it matters. It probably doesn't. Head coach of the Seahawks, Mike McDonald, said that Kenneth Walker, quote, is showing that he's earning more opportunities to get the ball, unquote. So the head coach finally admitting in public what we all can see with our eyeballs and what the data sheet tells us. More from McDonald. I think you really felt Ken Sunday. Even in the passing game, too, on checkdowns, finding him late in the play just shows you that he's such an explosive player with the ball in his hands, unquote. I'm going to swear, no shit, Sherlock. We all see it. We all can read it. We all know it. How about you do it? How about you give the ball to Walker more? I'm just saying, how about you finally follow through on what you just said there? Yeah, I've been saying it all year long. Jayden Reed could play this week. I don't think that's a good thing for the Packers. Well, I get it. It's a good thing for the Packers. It's not a good thing for fantasy. We don't have a trustworthy wide receiver for this team. Remember, the 2 touchdowns that Watson scored were on extremely poor decisions by the quarterback. The touchdown pass from Willis had the lowest percentage completion rate, according to Next Gen Stats, of any touchdown pass thrown last week. It was a horrible decision by Malik Willis. The touchdown he scored from Jordan Love was a heave into the corner of the end zone into double coverage. Another horrible decision by the quarterback. There's not a lot of volume here. As Jeff and I talked about on the show yesterday, the Elite Sports Show, Watson has 2 touchdowns in 14 games. So let's add now back in Reed to take some work away. Then now we got Golden. Now we got Reed. Now we got Watson. Now we got Dobbs. Ugh. Anyway, we'll continue to follow the storyline with Jayden Reed. Josh Jacobs, we talked about earlier here on the show. There is a chance he could play this week. He didn't practice yesterday. He's probably not going to play this week. We're probably going to see Emmanuel Wilson be a running back 20 this week, so 18, something like that, Emmanuel Wilson. Because the offense does do a good job of running through the backfield. In fact, that's often how, as Jeff Mans talks about all the time, the Packers actually have success. Jaylen Warren didn't practice yesterday. He's got the ankle issue. Mike Tomlin has said that he believes Jaylen Warren's going to play this week. He's already made that statement. He's optimistic, maybe not even the term, but we'll see. So we'll have to follow the reports today and tomorrow. This is why you shouldn't be setting your lineups or even asking start and sit-em questions really until Friday afternoon. We talk about this all the time. There's 2 games, 2 teams tonight, not one Thursday night football. Other than that, asking start and sit-em questions now, we have no idea if Warren's going to play. Again, the head coach has said he's going to play. If Warren plays, it's reasonable and, in fact, should be expected for him to touch the ball 15 times, which means Kenneth Gainwell's back in that 8 to 10 zone, and it's like, Obviously, if Warren is out, we've seen how heavily utilized Gainwell is when Warren is down. He's actually involved in the passing game more than Warren is, and then he gets those touches on the ground. So I think he's had 100 scrimmage yards in both the games he's played when Jaylen Warren's been down. Bucky Irving was limited in practice yesterday. I think I saw a Bucky Irving update this morning. Let's do a check here. Bucky Irving practiced today. So did Chris Godwin. They both practiced today, I guess. Godwin, again, if he returns, I don't care. I'm not starting him. If he's on the waiver wire, now is not a bad time to add Chris Godwin. Can we trust him to stay healthy? I don't know. Can we trust him to be on the field? I don't know. Can we trust him to be productive? I don't know. Would it be stunning if Chris Godwin's catching 5 or 6 passes for 58 yards? It would not. Bucky Irving, Bucky Irving, if he returns this week, and it certainly seems like that's the direction we're going in now, now that he's back at practice. Bucky Irving is the starter. Rachaad White and John Tucker are not startable in that scenario, in my opinion. Maybe if you're desperate and you need a flex play, and that's something we can work through the rest of the week here, but be cautious there. Saquon Barkley, getting 25 touches a week. He's the only game in town. Just wanted to point out that though the matchup against Dallas is not a bad one at all on paper, the Eagles are likely to be without 2 offensive linemen. Right tackle Lane Johnson is going to miss like 4 weeks with his injury, so he's out for like a month. Maybe it's 4 to 6 weeks, I think was the estimate. And then center Cam Jurgens had a head injury. He wasn't practicing yesterday. So the Eagles could be down 2 offensive linemen. If that is the case, that blunts enthusiasm for Barkley, even though the matchup on paper against Dallas is not a bad one. Tuten was limited in practice yesterday by Bhayshul Tuten with the ankle injury. People seemingly think Tuten's taking over the backfield. I don't think that's the case. A lot of people are seemingly thinking there's a committee going on. I don't think that's the case. I think this is very much a Kyron Williams, Blake Corum thing where people are getting way ahead of themselves. Tuten did have a great game last time out. No doubt, no debating. But it was the first time he saw anywhere near that level of involvement in the offense. And I don't think it's going to continue. So Tuten shouldn't be on the waiver wire 100%. If ETN were to miss the game, go down with injury, Tuten, we're starting him every week. Right now, Tuten is just a flex option. Like, people are getting way too far ahead of themselves, I think, there. And then finally, before we talk to Tyler Beaker, Rhamondre Stevenson was limited at practice yesterday, trying to return from missing a couple of weeks with his toe. He could play this week. Now, what does that mean? This team stubbornly, obnoxiously kept giving the ball to Stevenson, kept having Stevenson on the field with Trevion Henderson on the sidelines. Week after week after week. Henderson goes out and has a couple of big games, does what we all know he can do. Stevenson's back. What do? Is it 50-50 touch count? Is it 75-25 in favor of Henderson? Is it 75-25 Stevenson to Henderson? I don't think it's 75-25 Stevenson to Henderson. But the other two options are in play, meaning that if Stevenson does play, you got to be a little bit trepidatious if you're starting Trevion Henderson, because this coaching staff has done some odd things when it comes to the backfield. All right. So there is me. Let's talk to somebody else that you know well, that you see on the show every Thursday at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, who actually, we don't brag much on the show, and I know this guy doesn't brag at all, but he had a bet ski that hit and won like $737 trillion the other night. So let's bring him in. And before we dive into anything, he's Tyler Buecher of fantasyguru.com. Tyler, did I exaggerate? Was it 737 trillion? Is that close?
738. Very close. Yes.
What was the bet? It was a huge one.
Yeah, it was a multi-leg parlay for Monday Night Football. I mean, listen, when we got Dallas Cowboys, Las Vegas Raiders, there's nothing better than putting out a multi-leg big parlay. It ended up paying out 50-1. Very, very happy that all of our subscribers were able to come along for the ride and get a very, very profitable Monday Night Football. So that play, throughout 4 other plays, 5-0 hit. It was a great Monday night.
50-1. Not 5-1, 50-1, folks. That's a big one. He's Tyler Buecher of fantasyguru.com. He's one of our lead analysts for seasonal football. He's one of our lead analysts for DFS. He's one of our lead analysts for betting. You can see on the screen there, you can get the all-in NFL package right now. Email us at support@fantasyguru.com, support@fantasyguru.com, or click the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Get all 3 of the products for one low price for the rest of the season, $99.99, and get advice like Tyler just gave right there, helping people win a lot of money. We actually had a big hit in hockey, too, if you want to sign up for the MVP plan this week. I think, was it $20,000 for hockey? It was a big one. It's one of our subscribers.
The DFS Showdown, actually, we had a big hit for $20K. We had a big hit for hockey last week. I don't remember the dollar amount with it, right. But team's looking great right now. So get on and in with all of these things combined here. Fantastic package.
Yeah, and your DFS show is Friday night, correct?
That is correct. Friday nights.
Friday night, 7 o'clock?
7 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, we'll start at that time. We'll be running through the slate. This week I'll have Chris Rose. We will be walking basically position by position, talking everything week 12 for the upcoming main slate on Sunday.
Tyler again joins us here on the show every Thursday at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Let's dive in and talk some this week action. And I thought we talk a lot about the wide receiver with you this week. That's an area you focus a lot on anyway with your wide receiver, defensive back stuff over at fantasyguru.com. I want to ask you about Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson and the whole passing attack with the Cardinals. Obviously, Brissett sets a completion record. He's thrown for 450 yards. Wilson has a massive game. Dortch, goes off too. Where are basically Brissett, Wilson, and Dortch this week and moving forward for the Cardinals?
Yeah, they get a home matchup here against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are a pass funnel defense, so we are set up for not quite deja vu, but another big outing here from this passing attack, particularly on the outside. The Jaguars are giving up top 5 production to guys on the perimeter, which is where Michael Wilson runs the majority of his routes. He is teed up for another big outing. I just was working on my wide receiver coach, our DFS column that'll be up later this afternoon. Michael Wilson, sorry guys, spoiler alert, he is in there. Price $4,800 this week. He was $3,800 last week, so only $1,000 increase over on DraftKings, despite a 15-catch, 185-yard outing. Insane production last week from him. I envision some very similar success here. I'm not going to go that far as 15 catches and 180, but I think he'll be definitely a very popular play and a very great guy, a great point per projection play in a lot of models and projections. Dortch, more of the wild card play, the low ADAT guy. I typically try to avoid these types of guys because we're really just hoping we get a touchdown. Perhaps we do. He did get in one last week. But I think it just shines another bright light on Michael Wilson here in week 12. And got to mention Trey McBride. Dude, it's like scorched earth right now. Jaguars are another defense that cannot stop the tight end. I don't see that gravy train slowing down at all.
Tyler Buecher of FG. Let's move to Carolina. And, I guess a good couple of games from a team and a good performance by a quarterback blinds everyone to the fact that there's some issues here on this offense in terms of their passing attack. 448 yards, whatever the hell it was last week for Bryce Young, an all-time franchise record for the Carolina Panthers. This dude can't throw for 200 yards on a weekly basis. So he literally was twice what he normally does. Tetairoa McMillan's on pace for 80-plus catches, 1,000 yards. He's having a really good rookie season, especially given the context of how this team is performing. Last week, blew up because of the big effort. McMillan, is he back in that 5-catch, 50-yard kind of zone this week moving forward? Is that what it is? Or did we see something last week that makes us think, hey, now, this is going to be something that has some legs to it?
I would love to say yes. We're talking about betting to open the show. We've got some futures bets on McMillan to hit 800-plus receiving yards in the season. He is right around the corner from that. He's doing that this week here against the 49ers. I think he's in the 700s right now. So I envision him getting more than enough to clear that bar here. But I'm not going to go so far as to say we're going to get 100-plus outings from him week in and week out. It's Bryce Young. He's on the road. Young on the road has been one of the worst performers ever since he entered the league. His against the spread mark is horrendous. His production on the road has been horrendous. The good news is the 49ers defense is horrendous. They have no pass rush. Their secondary is not able to stop anybody. So I think we'll at least see maybe an entertaining matchup, but I do think the Niners take care of business with everybody healthy on that offense. It's going to be tough for the 49ers to go punch for punch, blow for blow in that game. That's Monday Night Football's matchup. I do think McMillan, though, is a top 20 asset rest of the season, but I don't expect 100-plus yard outings week in and week out. Maybe in the 50 to 75 is probably a better tempered expectations.
Tyler Beaker, follow him on Twitter X at Tyler Beaker. You can find him in Discord answering questions all the time. Jameson Williams, a guy we've talked about, and he's that classic boomer bust kind of player because there's usually not a lot of volume. He's a field stretcher. He fills an important role in the offense, but he doesn't always produce. First 5 weeks of the season for the Lions, this guy was averaging 2 catches for 45 yards. Nothing. For the last 5 games, he's had 60 yards and a touchdown. We've never seen consistency like this production-wise from him in his career to this point. Is this Dan Campbell taking over? Is his role changing? I mean, he's still 6-7 targets. It's not massive volume here. But even last week when they struggled against Philadelphia, he was the guy that produced.
Yeah, they've also gotten really lucky with some of the ways they are getting him the ball, though, which is maybe lucky is the wrong word. They're scheming him well in terms of getting him the ball in space and letting his speed shine yak-wise after the catch. Don't envision that changing here against a very man-heavy Giants defense. This is the exact type of defense you want. Those crossing patterns, those in-breaking routes, where you have the ability to get a guy in space and just let him fly up the field, turn it and hit the gas. 3 weeks ago, I believe, we saw a quote from this team where they wanted to get him the ball more, and they have followed through with that. These last 3 weeks have been fantastic. 3 straight weeks with a touchdown, almost 300 total yards over this span, just this 3-week span. And now we've got a fantastic matchup at home in the Dome against a Giants secondary. Their injury report, I was reading it yesterday, CB1, CB2, CB3, safety 1. All of these guys, either DNPs or limited. So you don't want to play a man-heavy scheme with all of your best defenders banged up or not at 100%. I think this Lions team is in for a big, big day. They're implied for a slate-high 30.5 team total. Wouldn't be shocked if they approach 40 in this matchup here against a Giants team that I don't even know who the quarterback is yet. Do we have Dart cleared? I saw a limited session on Wednesday. It's still a question mark.
It is. And we've been having a question mark. I mean, speaking of question marks at quarterback, I should say, the Jets, they made the switch this week to Tyrod Taylor. I talked about him a little bit earlier. Right? He is what he is. Adonai Mitchell, John Metchie. Those are the top 2 wideouts. Obviously, Metchie, the guy that we're going to catch some passes to. Mitchell's the guy we're going to throw the ball down the field to. Hope he doesn't drop it. Mitchell, Metchie, any interest, DFS, seasonal, good matchup, anything here with these two, or you're just playing with fire?
It is definitely a playing with fire kind of thing. I will note that Mitchell specifically had 6 targets last week, a decent amount of air yards. It just didn't come to fruition in terms of him being able to connect. Some of those were bad passes by Fields. Some of those were bad body contortions by Adonai himself, he's still a work in progress in my eyes. He's not a perfect receiver prospect. I was a bit shocked to see Tyler Johnson take the bigger step backwards. And Arian Smith. Arian Smith, to me, he was a rookie they invested in this year. He's a speedster, very similar to Adonai Mitchell. I thought he was going to run ahead of Mitchell in terms of route participation. They ended up going very close, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull it up. No, I'm wrong. Adonai Mitchell whooped his butt. Adonai Mitchell 60% versus 20% for Arian Smith. So that dream has sailed. I don't really have any expectations for this group aside from Mason Taylor. I think he kind of moves up more into the streaming category. Right. The wideouts, though, I mean, it takes time to build rapport with these downfield vertical guys. And Metchie, are we at journeyman status? Like Houston, Philadelphia, Jets. Mm-hmm. He's kind of bounced around all over the place. Start-sit formats. We've got 4 teams on bye this week. I guess you could go in that direction, but I will not be advising that to anybody. These are pure get super weird on a small slate DFS plays. They are not strong recommendations in any fashion because we've just seen poor performance from Tyrod so far. Like he's done well in terms of fantasy, but a lot of that's been boosted by his rushing production. The passing element, I mean, even the few games he started, it was Garrett Wilson and then nobody behind him. Like even Mason Taylor didn't have good games when Tyrod started earlier this year. So I do think there's a lot of volatility with these options. I think maybe in a 12-team or deeper, you can stash Adonai Mitchell as a upside play for down the back half of the year, but it's a dart throw. It's admittedly a dart throw, and frankly, I use my bench for running backs over wide receivers, so he will not be on any of my squads.
I use my bench for running backs too. Tyler Beaker of FantasyGuru.com joins us on Thursdays at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time here on the show. Let's shift things over to the Texans. We're still Davis Mills. Another week without CJ Stroud, as we hope to get him back soon from the head injury. Jayden Higgins, interesting. 3 of the last 4 games, he's seen 7 targets. He's been more involved. We were talking earlier about some of the expenditures on the waiver wires. Some people kind of aggressively targeting him this week. What are your thoughts on Higgins? You can make the case that he's ascending to the point where he's the number 2 wideout on this team, even though his role seems to be one that he shouldn't be because he seems more like the fill-in for Collins, if I'm not mistaken, than Kirk would with Noel.
Yeah, he's taken over more snaps and routes relative to Xavier Hutchinson, who had been that wide receiver 2 that they've been leaning on. So that's a promising thing for a young rookie. We like to see these guys take steps forward over the second half of the year. And Higgins fits that profile. I mean, you're kind of getting in early on the ground floor in terms of not ground floor, but you're getting in early before we see any type of breakout. We're in the midst of the swap, similar to how we're just seeing it right now with Luther Burden in Chicago. Yep. We're seeing these guys slowly take over as the year progresses. Carving out a role, whether that be due to inconsistencies from the guys in front of them or these guys just showing up well in practice and meriting it on their own behalf. Higgins, 6'4", big guy, like you said, kind of in that Nico mold in terms of a prototypical X size guy. Mm-hmm. But you just give your quarterback a pair of 6'4" rebounders, they're ecstatic. I mean, no offense to the 5'9" guys out there that are getting it done, but yeah, 6'4" receivers definitely built from a different cloth. I think he in this matchup is very interesting because the Bills play a lot of 2 high coverage. The type of routes that Higgins will run will be a lot of in-breaking routes. So it's like kind of get him in space and let him run. He's got a very strong athletic profile, very productive production at very productive time at Iowa State. He and Jaylen Noel. So I'm excited. I think this is a good spot for him on national television to come out and put up 30, 40, 50 yards and be one of those guys that you want to grab off waiver wires now, with the game 7 hours away. Grab him now beforehand because this could be a spot where everyone sees him do it. They'll all be racing to go get him next week on waivers.
We were talking earlier about Tetairoa McMillan and his high level of success as a rookie this season. Emeka Egbuka with the Tampa Bay Bucks, same thing, having a great rookie season. His start to the season kind of opposite of Jameson Williams. He was terrific at the start of the season. In the second half of the season to this point, his last 5 games, Egbuka's averaging 4 catches for 54 yards. He has 1 touchdown in 5 games. He's been physically beat up. There's obviously injuries all over the place on offense with the Bucks. What are your expectations for him against the Rams and also rest of the way kind of thing? I know it's hard to predict because of the health of Godwin and Evans in particular, but can you pinpoint a reason why he was basically a superstar the first 5 weeks? In the last 5 weeks, he's kind of been just a guy?
Sure. He had been picking up a lot of chunk gains against zone coverages where he was able to run those in-breaking things, 15-yard ins, some posts, and he was getting a lot of success in that fashion, also running hot in the touchdown department. Keep in mind, we were also viewing Baker Mayfield in that light too, where he was running hot in terms of him playing quote unquote Baker mentality, blah, blah, blah. He was just going savage mode to start the year. Over the last 4 weeks, that production has tailed off precipitously for Baker. He has been the second worst quarterback in quarters 1 and 2, the first half of games, among all quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks in terms of EPA added. He has just been absolutely dreadful. And that's been fine because in the second half of games, he's been doing that Baker thing where he goes crazy and puts up production. We have not seen that Baker thing these last 4 weeks, whether it be due to the offensive line, the running backs, the wide receivers. There's just a lot of things that have really just come together to make Baker kind of struggle. I don't see that changing this week here. They're on the road playing the Rams on Sunday Night Football, tough spot, great pass rush, great secondary. Like this defense the Rams are putting together, they are ready for a legitimate run in the NFC. Can't say the same for the Bucs despite their record. I still think there's a lot of struggles for this team, specifically offensively. Egbuka is just going to be somewhat variable as long as Baker's variable. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship where these two play off one another. Hopefully we can get some more consistency out of him, but hell, he got 9 targets last week. You can't really ask for much more than that from a wide receiver. So I just think we got to ride the waves. I still think he's a very, very talented wide receiver and the future of this Bucs passing attack.
Tyler, one more question to ask you before we move to Thursday Night Football. Darnell Mooney is a 5'10", 180-pound guy. I'm a heightist too. So he's a smaller guy. He was a 5th-round draft pick. In the context of that, he's had a great career. Like he really has, given all of that. Even last year, he was almost a 1,000-yard, 5-touchdown guy. In and out of the lineup this year, hasn't done anything this year. We're getting a change to Cousins, who he's had success with in the past. We've got the injury to London, which should open up more work. Mooney this week. Is Mooney the guy you're looking at? Is Tetairoa Hodge the guy that's going to step forward as he basically takes over for London? What are we expecting from the receivers this week for the Atlanta Falcons?
The bigger question is, what are we expecting from Kirk Cousins?
That's
because
the
quarterback drives the offense. If he's not able to survive a pass rush, like the New Orleans Saints pass rush, which isn't up there at all in terms of strength, I don't know what really kind of ceiling we can expect these last 8 weeks or so with him under center now that Penix has been put on IR. Mooney, the smaller size. He's also like under 180 pounds. So he's just a very svelte guy. August, he was banged up entering the year. He also had some in-season injuries. So it's just been a disastrous season compared to what 2024 played out for him. I don't really know which one to go toward to answer this question directly. I'll say that Mooney to Cousins was a great connection last year, weeks 1 through 14, when they were both healthy. And before Cousins kind of had that fall off to close out that 2024 season. There's a lot of help there in terms of London drawing coverage, safety attention. So Mooney was getting a lot of one-on-ones. Don't know if that'll translate here now that we've got London out of the picture for this week. He's got a knee injury that's week to week for him. I think Mooney's more of a DFS play where he's just like $4,800 on DraftKings. It's very affordable in my eyes. And they're playing the Saints, not a defense necessarily that we need to fear coverage-wise. So I think he's a fine play, but I would not say anything higher for redraft leagues, wide receiver 4 as a flex.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. By the way, Nick thinks you're the GOAT. So Nick was happy. That's a GOAT there if we can't tell what it is, everybody. I'm assuming, right? Tyler Beaker's the GOAT? Yeah, let's go with that. Look at that. Drew jumped in there, by the way, and said, Ray the man himself. And Tyler, thanks for the sick parlay hit. By the way, if you missed it, it was a 50-1 parlay that did hit last week from Tyler. We did get a question here from Doc before we go into the Thursday Night Football game. Parlays. Everyone wants parlays. Everyone wants to buy a new house. Okay, I get it. How many of your bets are parlays, and what's your general advice there? Because if you're playing a parlay where the odds are plus 150 or so, okay. If you're doing the 50-1 kind of thing, how often is that going to hit? So give a little bit of a talk about your betting strategy and how often it includes parlays.
95% of my bets are all straight plays. So I'm taking a player's pass yards. I'm taking a receiver's reception prop. I'm not parlaying these things together because every time you introduce more legs to it, it just increases the variability and the difficulty for them to come through. I do not do these things. The parlays are not my jam. I'll be frank with you guys. I just don't do them because I think more often than not, they're losing endeavors. I'd much rather sweat out one singular outcome rather than sweat out 10 uncorrelated outcomes, hoping they all somehow come together We got super lucky. That's not always going to happen where you're able to pull off a 51 parlay. I want to be very real with you all. That's an anomaly. I was even hesitant to even put it out there, but I'm glad I did because everyone got to profit. But let me just say that I will not be doing this consistently. I'll probably do it when we have fun slates, like the Thanksgiving 3-game slate. I'll probably do something for that. The postseason, I'll probably doing something for that. But no, I will not. I will probably not be putting out parlays to that degree with any type of consistency this regular season. I will say, though, Jeff consistently does put out some great parlays every single slate, whether that be a Thursday night game, the full Sunday slate, or a Monday night game. Usually on the small singular games, he'll do a touchdown combination of plays. That's what he's kind of shifted into. But he definitely has you guys covered for big parlays. So follow those instead. I'm not going to try to step on his toes or overlap you guys with multiple parlays and have you guys spread out too thin where we've got so many bets going on and you don't know what to root for. That is not my style. So I will not be doing that very consistently. But glad we were able to get it this past Monday. But yeah, look out for it on Thursday. I will be definitely doing one for Thanksgiving.
We'll probably have a bet in a few minutes here on Thursday Night Football, so stay tuned for that. Tyler usually shares one. There you go. Usually shares one here for free. Remember, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner to get involved with us over at FG. Let's talk about that game, the Bills at the Texans. Obviously, the Texans have a very good defense. Let's talk about the Bills' offense for a second. Josh Allen went nuts last week, had 6 touchdowns. I don't know how good he played. Yeah. I mean, especially that chest pass interception from the goal line. So, he is what he is. You're starting him. We don't need to talk about it. Matchup doesn't matter. He's in your lineup. Okay, fine. Let's talk about the receivers here for a second. Last week we had the situation with Keon Coleman. I don't know if we're positive how he's going to be integrated this week into the offense or not. I don't know because so there's that. And snap counts, route rate, participation. Those are important numbers. And if you look at the receivers last week, Shakir had 30 snaps, Shavers had 30 snaps, Samuel had 28 snaps, Palmer had 28 snaps, Davis had 23 snaps. Now, Samuel's beat up. We don't know if Davis is going to be in the lineup. Okay, all these guys. You can't have 5 guys all running the same amount of routes. Like that is, from a fantasy perspective, that's just death.
Yes.
What do you think with this receiving core here? Because I think the one guy that you constantly use in this offense as a pass catcher is Khalil Shakir, and he didn't do it. He had 1 catch. He didn't do anything. I don't know how much of that was injury, matchup, whatever. But what are your thoughts going into the matchup with the Texans tonight with this wide receiver position of the Bills?
It's a disaster. That's my answer. I mean, even Shakir last week, -3 yards on the day. So that 1 catch wasn't even worth it, unless you're in a PPR format or half PPR. But in the standard league, you lost some points there. I do believe I read Curtis Samuel will be out for this game, which does kind of consolidate things a little bit cleaner. Kincaid also out. So we've got those 2 guys out, which are notable. Dawson Knox, to me, though, is much more of that catch and fall down type of player. He is not the vertical seam buster that Kincaid is. Do not start going after Knox props thinking that he's going to be the same guy that Kincaid is in terms of apples to apples. Very different players in terms of their style. I'd much rather go the reception route with Knox over yardage. But I'm going a little bit in the weeds here. The receivers are very tough. Hardman was also ruled out. Let me also add that which kind of helps with the field vertical guys in terms of limiting the number of players that could rotate through. I don't have any faith in any of these guys. You can try to go the Shakir route. I think he's probably the safest bet despite the dud last week. But I mean, in a game where Allen threw for 300 yards, he threw for 3 touchdowns, Shakir with -3 yards. It's like, I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth right now where I don't have much conviction in that play either. But they are on the road here. The last time they faced the Texans was last year. I think it was a 20-23 game, which was a closely contested battle. We saw some rushing production from Josh Allen in that matchup. That's kind of what I'm banking on is the Allen rushing angle rather than any of these pass catchers really being any guy that kind of jumps out. Maybe we get the Keon Coleman narrative thing going. And if you want to, I don't know, maybe that's a DFS showdown thing. Don't do it in your redraft leagues. We've got 2 weeks until the fantasy playoffs start for most formats with them starting week 14, week 15. Just right now, while you're jockeying for a playoff position spot, I would not be getting too cute with any of these Buffalo wideouts aside from Shakir.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com, joins us every Thursday here on the show. They run the ball very well to the Bills, obviously, and James Cook is somebody you're starting regardless, but it is a difficult matchup tonight against Houston. They've given up 3 rushing touchdowns the last 5 games. It's 3.3 yards a carry the last 5 games. Cook, is he just a floor play tonight, or is there a chance for him to have one of these big 120 yards from scrimmage, 2 touchdown kind of efforts in this game?
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for sure. The Texans are a strong run defense. They're healthy as well. Their front seven's looking pretty darn good. That said, I think it's strength versus strength. This Buffalo rushing attack is no slouch. They've been doing really, really well, getting James Cook out in space, especially with like some outside runs. Hopefully they're able to get those going. I'm confidently turning to James Cook. He just does so much where it feels a bit getting too cute in terms of putting your best player away in a matchup where you need him to win. Like, this is still an important game for both sides, where both are contending for postseason seeding. So it's not like they're going to like just kind of relax on this matchup. Davis Mills has looked fantastic these past 2 games where he's keeping them competitive. So I expect the Bills to take this one very seriously and for them to ride on the engine of this offense, which is the combination of Allen and James Cook.
Tyler, on the other side of things, you mentioned Davis Mills. We got a defense in the Bills that's really interesting, right? They don't allow much of anything to the quarterback, and they get steamrolled on the ground by the running back. So what is the offense likely to look like? What's your expectation for what the Texans try to do tonight? Is it just marks, and some Chubb? Like, what are we doing tonight?
Yeah, I think the best path for Houston to upset the Bills would be very long, methodical drives where they limit the time of possession and keep Buffalo's offense off the field. That's what I'm expecting to happen tonight. That's going to lean on a lot of rushing. It's going to lean on a lot of short area passes. I think we're going to see Dalton Schultz consistently involved. People like to kind of say the Bills are tough against the tight end position. I think tight end varies so much in terms of offense to offense, where I kind of use it with a grain of salt. Like, if they're bad, yeah, I'll throw to my analysis, but keep that in mind. Like, that's just manipulating stats. It's manipulating data just to add into the sentence to a paragraph. I want you guys all to know, I'm just being honest with you guys. You can manipulate data to any degree that you'd like. I think what's more important is how the offense is run on their end. And they've been using a lot of Nico Collins, 25 total targets of these last 2 games with Davis Mills under center, 20 targets for the tight end. So I don't think Schultz will be going away anytime soon. I think they'll be using a lot of runs, a lot of short area passes. And then we're going to see some deeper plays sparingly. Like, this is a team that plays a lot of too high coverage, usually too high. You try to limit those kinds of plays. Nico's best games with Stroud are typically whenever they're in man or single high coverages. So this doesn't schematically align for a massive outing for Nico Collins on paper. That doesn't mean he can't get there. He can get there through yak. He can get there through some crossers, some in-breaking routes. It's just a little bit different in terms of how they will utilize him here versus some of the previous matchups they just had. That said, we just saw another 2 high defense like the Jaguars. Nico Collins tore them up 2 weeks ago. A huge production game on the perimeter there. The perimeter corners for Buffalo are up and down at times. Christian Benford's a great defensive back. Depends what we're going to do with Trey White out there. But if we got some Trey White versus Nico Collins, I would expect them to target him heavily. So I'm really expecting this Houston team to make this an interesting game and really kind of slow things down, particularly in the first half. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. Maybe a bit slowed, kind of boring in terms of like fantasy action, but in terms of outcome, I think it's going to be a closely contested battle.
Now, by the way, Dalton Schultz, not a ceiling play at all. He's got 1 touchdown this season. He's caught 5 passes in 7 of 8 games. Now, that's, given the state of the tight end position, that you're getting 10 points every week. That's pretty damn good with Dalton Schultz. And as Tyler mentioned, huge volume here the last couple of weeks. Tyler Beaker of fantasyguru.com. Hey, Tyler, give us a bet. You always got something good for the folks. You like to share one here. Remember, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. Send an email, support@fantasyguru.com if you want to get signed up for what we got to offer over there. But Tyler, you got a free one for the folks. What do you got for tonight's game?
I do. I handed this out to our guys last night, early afternoon, actually. Would love to give this one out here. Again, it is a defensive play. We love TNA, tackles and assists. I'm going to give out Terrell Bernard, Buffalo Bills linebacker, over 6.5 tackles and assists. Great matchup here against the Texans. They are giving up the second most tackles and assists to opposing linebackers this year. 16 different linebackers have hit 7 or more tackles against this defense. And that includes recently, which I think is very notable given the way Davis Mills is operating this offense. Last week, we saw Cedric Gray from the Titans went for 11. The week before that, against the Jaguars, we saw both middle linebackers, Foye Oluokun and Devin Lloyd, 9 and 8 respectively. So we're just getting 6.5. This is a pretty low line for Bernard. He's 100% snap linebacker, so he never really leaves the field. Coming off an 11 tackle and assist outing last week. He had been banged up a bit through some ankle injuries, but he is completely off the injury report entering this matchup. I think he's got I would thought the line would have been closer to 7.5. So get him at 6.5. You can get that over on DraftKings or Bet365 right now. I like him to clear that line at anything minus 125 or better odds.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. Let's hit up the chat room real quickly here before we shut things down on the show here, Tyler. Ethan asked a question about Noah Fant. Jamar Chase is out, and literally, not exaggerating, he gets about 14 targets a week from Joe Flacco. So there is a large volume of passes here now. As we talked about earlier, I guess there's a shot that Joe Burrow plays this week too. We'll see how that plays out. But what are your thoughts for Noah Fant? Is there a chance that his role grows this week because of the loss of Jamar Chase?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. He certainly could get a little bit of a bump. Probably Yoshi is the biggest guy. Andre Yoshivis gets the biggest bump. Mitchell Tinsley also in the fold there for some upticks in targets and opportunity. Fant to me just consistently seems like a floor play, and he's never like the first read in this offense. It's always like a check down. So there are times where Flacco has him open. Like as a guy that's bet Fant reception props in the past, it can be very tilting trying to watch and root for Noah Fant to get the ball because he never is really like incorporated as a key piece. Maybe he gets a small bump, sure. I think everybody does because Chase is such a target magnet, but it's moderate.
Ethan has a follow-up question here, setting up as backfield this week. Breece Hall, Marks, or Pittman, actually. Pittman. I'll say it this way. I hate 2 wide receiver leagues. If you have 4 wide receivers in the top 20, doesn't matter who you start. That's kind of my point of view. Pittman's got to be start. I mean, I don't know why Pittman wouldn't be in a lineup. But if you had to make this call between Pittman, Hall, and Marks, you said Marks is going to be heavily involved. That's how they're going to win this game. Are you excited enough about him to play him over Hall and Pittman?
No, I would go Hall and I'd go Pittman here. Pittman, I like the matchup against the Chiefs. Shootout potential. This one, I mean, if the Colts are able to knock off the Chiefs this week, that coming out of their bye week, the Colts coming out of their bye week, that would speak huge for their ability to make a legitimate postseason run. And it could also nix the ability for the Chiefs to even get into the postseason. So huge game for the Colts there. I love Pittman in this matchup. And then Hall, I think we've got a boost here with Tyrod Taylor there. They face the Ravens. They're going to be major dogs there in that game. But the Ravens' run defense still has some holes there, particularly along the defensive line. They brought back a lot of players at the second level and third level, linebacker and defensive back, over the last few weeks. But that defensive line is still a bit of an issue. So if the Jets can keep the run game going, Tyrod can also get the pass game involvement to Hall a little bit better than what we've seen from Justin Fields. Good Lord, man. Sweating out Breece Hall receiving props on Thursday Night Football last week was very tilting. I'm a bit more bullish with Breece now that we've got a better quarterback under center.
Stefan's got a question. He wants to swing for the fences, which is good because these players are at this point, we don't know if Darius Slayton's playing. So Luther Burden, yes, but still wears the volume out in the passing attack. Trey Tucker, obviously the wide receiver 1 for the Raiders, doesn't usually mean much. Josh Palmer, in theory, could see his role grow, but as we talked about earlier, there's 5 guys involved here, it looks like right now. Adonai Mitchell, we talked about earlier too. You had to take 2 of these dart throws, which they all kind of are. I don't want to be starting any of these guys really this week. I'm kind of thinking you got to go Tucker, but what do you think? What are your 2?
Tucker and Slayton would be my guys, but we're waiting on Slayton. Did not practice on Wednesday. So if he's unable to go, I'm looking Burden. I'm just not really eager to play Palmer or Mitchell, to be honest, right now. I think Mitchell, like I said, good volume, good air yards last week, but we need to see it with Tyrod. Very different quarterback. So I'm going to go Tucker and Slayton right now, but this will be something for you to keep an eye on as we get through the week. Tucker, though, great matchup there against the Browns. Play a lot of man coverage, a lot of single high. Last time he faced a very man-heavy defense, the Commanders, was that matchup where Tucker went for 150 yards, 3 touchdowns. So I think there's some upside there with Tucker here. And what could be a gross game on paper between Shador and Geno, but could have some underlying goodness there, especially in Tucker.
Doc got a quarterback question. Did I make a mistake picking up Purdy, who was dropped over Brissett? Purdy still has his bye in week 14. So that's something to think about. But if you had to choose a guy, I mean, is it as simple as saying you want Brissett the rest of the way because he doesn't have a bye? Do you think Kyler Murray returns and takes over the spot? Are they the same guy and we're playing matchups? Like, what are your thoughts, I guess, directly Purdy versus Brissett?
Yeah, these are the 2 quarterbacks that I play versus matchups. I will say I'm a huge Purdy fan. I mean, this guy, ever since entering the league, #1 quarterback in EPA per play, above Allen, above Lamar, above Mahomes. It's Purdy. Purdy's the #1 quarterback in EPA. So I think this guy's in a fantastic setup. He's got his weapons back healthy. Draws the Carolina Panthers this week on Monday Night Football. I'm going to go Purdy here.
Final one from Brandon. Brandon says he's confused by what to do for the playoff run. No one's making trades. Okay. I don't really know what we're confused at looking at this team. Your wide receivers are Pittman, Higgins, Watson, Devontae Adams. You're starting Pittman and Adams all the time. Okay. Running back position, you've got Swift, ETN, Barkley, Benson, Hampton, and Chase Brown. That's more complicated because those are usable pieces here. But you're starting Barkley every week. You're probably starting Swift every week, and then one of the other three. So we do have a lot of strength here in the backfield, which we love to see. It would be nice, I think, if we can make a move at the wide receiver spot, because given that depth, but kind of the direction I would lean. But again, Brendan's saying that's a hard thing for him to work out in his league right now.
You're kind of stuck then, man. I hate to say it. It's better to have an abundance of riches in the other direction. So you just got to – I would play your running backs based off matchups. That's how I tend to play these guys. But well, some of these guys are banged up. Some of these guys are coming off IR, so we'll have to see how those guys get eased back into it. But, yeah, it certainly looks like an abundance of riches here. If you can try to do a 2-for-1 trade before your deadline, I feel like most of them are happening today, Thursday, before this week kicks off. Get on the phone, text everyone in your league, email everyone in your league, whatever you got to do. Try to make it happen, because if nothing happens before the deadline, you're just going to have some strong performances on your bench the rest of the season.
You're 9-2. You're 8-3. You're going to get the number 1 spot in your playoffs. What's your appetite to trade? Because I see a lot of people trying to do things like those 2-for-1 trades. And I would say objectively, yeah, you're getting the best player, but boy, you just gave someone else a top 15 running back and a top 13 wide receiver. Like, you really improved one of your league mates here, getting that one person back. Would you play it that way? If you were at like the number 1 seed, would you just go for broke? And who cares if you're improving your league mates, excuse me?
I have a tough time trading in all my leagues, so I probably not a great person to ask that. I never trade, really. I think I've done one in the last 5 years. I will say, like, when you do kind of moves like that, and you look back at like the Jamar Chase outing here, 3 catches, 30 yards last week. It's Jamar Chase. You want to start him every single week. But these kinds of things do occur where there's not always spike week. And maybe that wide receiver 13 outscores Chase in a very pivotal matchup, week 15, week 16, where the one guy's got a better matchup than Chase, and it just kind of breaks that way, where you're also giving up a top 15 running back to get the Chase, like in this example here. I would probably just refrain there, stick with the guys that got you the dance. It's kind of like a popular saying. I don't disagree with that sentiment.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. He mentioned it earlier over at FG. On Friday nights, he hosts the DFS live stream at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. On Tuesdays, he's often on the seasonal live stream that we have at 7 o'clock Eastern on Tuesdays. He's always here with us Thursdays at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. He's busier toward the end of the week with his writing because he's doing all the analysis all the week. What do you got coming out here the next couple of days, kind of your norm each week there, Tyler?
Yep, this Thursday, today, I've got my DFS wide receiver coach article, which will be posted on the website later this afternoon. Then I start diving into my game script column where I'm going game by game, looking at everything from matchup to pace of play to play calling lens to individual upgrades, downgrades, everything for that. That'll be out on Saturday. Friday evening, I've got the DFS show with this week will be with Chris Rose. We talked about that a little bit ago. And then Sunday mornings, you guys can catch me in our Discord channel where I'll be doing start sits 90 minutes before our 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff.
Tyler Beaker of FG. Remember, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Send that email to support@fantasyguru.com. Get all 3 of our betting, DFS, and seasonal for football, meaning you get college football and the NFL, all 3 for one low price of $99.99 the rest of the way. And that gets you all of Tyler's great work. Tyler, as always, thanks for joining us on Thursday. We talked last week. I didn't ask you before the show today. We talked last week about doing a Turkey Day show. Are we leaning toward still doing the Thursday show next week on Thanksgiving?
Let's do it. Thursday, I'll be here.
Okay, so Tyler and I'll be here. There might be 7 of you here because, again, it's Thanksgiving and the game action will be the first time for this show where we'll actually be doing game action live. So we'll have the TV on and be talking about that as we're going through the show here. But Tyler and I will plan to be with you next Thursday for at least a little bit there on Thanksgiving. Tyler, we'll see you then. Thanks for your time today. Have a great week.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck this week, and I'll see you next week.
He's Tyler Beaker. I'm Ray Flowers. An hour from now over on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Check out the Elite Sports Show with Jeff Mans, 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. I'll be back here tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with Russell Clay. He'll join me at about 12:30 as he does every Friday. For Tyler, I'm Ray. It's been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by the one and only fantasyguru.com.